For most of the 1960s, in most American newsrooms, one rule held. A woman could gather the news. She could not be the one to tell it. She could work the phones, get the quote, and check every fact in the story. Then a man read it over, put his name on top, and sent it to print. The papers called it professional standards. They called hard news a man's job. What it really was a machine that took a woman's reporting and ran a man's name across it. At number 15, the balcony where the women covering the president were not allowed to send down one question. At number 2, the cover story about women that a magazine would not let its own women write. None of this was hidden. This is a documented record. Hit the subscribe button and let's count down. Number 20, the married woman's exit. Before a woman could worry about her byline, she had to keep her job, and in many newsrooms, marriage or a pregnancy could end it. Betsy Wade would go on to become the first woman to edit news copy at the New York Times. But earlier, at the New York Herald Tribune, she made the mistake of telling her bosses she was expecting a child. They fired her. Years later, she put it plainly. When that happens to you, she said, it sets your politics straight, fast. There was no maternity leave to protect her, and no law that said a paper could not do it. A wedding ring or a growing belly was treated as notice that a woman was on her way out. The clock on her career did not start with her ability. It started with her body. Number 19, the mailroom door. For most women, the newsroom had one entrance, and it was the bottom. She came in as a secretary, a clipper in the morgue, a mail girl carrying copy between desks. The jobs that led somewhere, reporter, writer, editor, were filled by men who often walked in with the exact same degree she had. If she was talented and stubborn, she might climb out of the mailroom. Most did not get the chance. The men around her called it starting at the bottom, the same as anyone. It was not the same. A young man in the mailroom was a future reporter being seasoned. A young woman in the mailroom was a mail girl, and that is where the paper meant to keep her. Number 18, the society page. If a woman did become a reporter, the paper had a place ready for her, and it was walled off from the news. They called it the women's page. One editor described the beat as the 4 F's: food, fashion, furniture, and family. Weddings, recipes, club luncheons, the color of the first lady's dress. Reporters called it the pink ghetto. The work could be sharp, and some women's page editors slipped real reporting past the front office. But the message was fixed. War, politics, crime, and money were for the news section, which meant for the men. A woman's mind was assumed to reach as far as the kitchen and the altar, and no further. The page had her name on it. The front page did not. Number 17, the girl story. Even a woman who fought her way onto the regular staff learned that the assignments came sorted by sex. The men got the city hall beat and the courthouse. She got the stunt. One young reporter in Honolulu spent her days in a borrowed evening gown covering the Junior League ball and taking notes at the Narcissus Festival. When she asked her editors to send her to cover the war in Vietnam, the biggest story of her life, they thought she was joking. It was out of the question. So she quit and went as a freelancer. The paper had a name for what she wrote: girl stories. Ride an elephant, drive a Jeep blindfolded, describe a gown, prove you can be charming, never mind that you could report. Number 16, the honor roll. The profession had a way of marking who counted, and it left women off the list. Sigma Delta Chi was the leading society for American journalists. It began as a men's fraternity and became a professional society in 1960, and it kept its doors closed to women until a vote at its 1969 convention in San Diego. For most of the decade, the men of the press could be inducted into the field's most respected body. The women could not. They were pointed toward a separate, smaller society of their own. The honors, the contacts, the sense of belonging to the real profession, all of it was reserved. She could do the work of a journalist. She could not be counted as one. Number 15, the balcony. When the president or a prime minister came to Washington to speak, they spoke at the National Press Club, and the club did not admit women. For years, a woman reporter could not attend at all. Then the club offered what it considered a courtesy. She could watch from the balcony. She could not sit at the tables below, could not send a question down to the speaker, and was not invited to the reception. She stood in the heat next to the television lights while the men ate lunch and made news beneath her. One reporter called it a cattle car. In 1959, a single speaker refused to appear unless women were let onto the floor as equals. It was Nikita Khrushchev. The club made an exception for that one lunch, then sent the women back upstairs. It did not admit them as members until 1971. To cover the most powerful people in the country, a woman had to look down on them from a balcony and keep quiet. Notice what has happened, and she has not written a word yet. She has been shelved on the women's page, kept out of the honor roll, and made to watch the news from a balcony. The paper decided what she was before it ever read her copy. Number 14, the press box she could not enter. If she covered sports, the door to her own workplace was often locked. Women were kept out of press boxes and out of the locker rooms where players were interviewed after the game, the place the real quotes came from. The men filed their stories with those quotes. She filed hers from the hallway, or waited for a public relations man to bring a player out to her. It took a federal lawsuit to break it. In 1978, a court ruled that barring a Sports Illustrated reporter named Melissa Lutke from the locker room violated her rights and put her at a severe disadvantage against the men. The rule had never been about protecting anyone. It was about who was allowed to do the job. She had the same press pass. She was sent to stand in the hall. Number 13, the beat she could not touch. Beyond the women's page, the newsroom had a quiet map of where a woman could go. Politics, crime, the police desk, the financial pages, the courts. The important beats, the ones that built a career and a reputation, were understood to be men's work. An editor rarely had to write the rule down. He simply did not assign her. When she asked for the State House or the murder trial, she was told the readers would not take a woman seriously on a story like that, or that the beat was too rough for her. The effect was a ceiling disguised as a preference. She could report. She just could not report on the things the paper had decided mattered most. Number 12, the foreign desk. The best assignments in journalism were overseas, and there was a gate in front of them. At the Associated Press, the largest news service in the country, the foreign editor would not let a woman work the foreign desk. And working the foreign desk was the required step before a reporter could be sent abroad. His reasoning was stated flatly. He did not believe a woman could stand up to the demands of the world's rougher corners and its war zones. So the pipeline that carried reporters to London, to Saigon, to the capitals where history was being written, had a filter at the front, and the filter removed the women. A man of ordinary talent moved through it. A woman of real talent stopped at the desk she was not allowed to sit at. The door abroad was locked from a room she could not enter. Number 11, the assignment refused. Sometimes the bar was not a policy. It was a sentence from the man in charge. One reporter spent 3 years asking the Associated Press to send her to Vietnam. The head of the wire service told her, in words she never forgot, that he would never send a woman to Vietnam. Not that she was unqualified, not that the timing was wrong, that he would never do it because she was a woman. Others were told the same in gentler language. The war was too dangerous, too ugly, no place for a lady. So the women who were determined to cover the defining story of their generation often had to quit their jobs and pay their own way to get there. The press was reporting a war. It had decided out loud who was allowed to see it. Set these beside each other, and a single sentence runs through them. You may report, but not from there. Not the foreign desk, not the courthouse, not the war. The story of the decade was happening, and the men drew a line she was not allowed to cross. Number 10, the front with no ladies' room. Even a woman who reached the war found the military waiting with a rule. She could be accredited as a correspondent, but she was to stay in the rear, in the field hospitals and the supply areas, away from the actual fighting the men were free to cover. The reason offered was almost too small to believe. There were no bathroom facilities for women at the front. One correspondent, Dickie Chappelle, heard a general complain that he did not want his Marines pulling up their pants because she was around. Her answer was simple. That would not bother her one bit. Her job was to cover the war. Chappelle went out on patrol with a Marine platoon, and in 1965 she was killed by a booby trap, the first American woman reporter to die in combat. The men who wrote the rule were still at the rear. Number 9, the half a paycheck. When a woman did the same job as the man at the next desk, she was rarely paid the same for it. The gap was not an accident of a few bad managers. It was the ordinary arithmetic of the newsroom. Alice Dunnigan, one of the first women to cover the White House and Congress, earned about half of what the men working beside her were paid. Same press pass, same deadlines, same stories. Half the money. The papers had an answer ready when anyone asked. A man had a family to support. A woman was working for pin money or biding her time until marriage. It did not matter that many of these women supported themselves, and often others too. The lower number was set before she arrived. Her work never moved it. Number 8, the masthead. There was a ceiling in every newsroom, and it was easy to find. You looked at the list of editors printed in the paper, the masthead, and there were no women on it. The people who decided what was news, who got hired, and who got promoted were men, top to bottom. At the New York Times, a survey by the paper's own women found the shape of it. 40 women reporters against 385 men. Of 22 national correspondents, not one was a woman. Of 33 foreign correspondents, 3. And of the handful of women who ran anything in American newspapers, a small group of senior editors, every one of them was white. The men explained it as a pipeline problem, a shortage of qualified women. The qualified women were sitting in the building, uncounted. Number 7, the double strike. For a black woman, the newsroom held 2 barriers stacked one on top of the other. Ethel Payne covered the White House and the civil rights movement for the Chicago Defender, and was known for asking the questions the white male press would not. She was one of only a few black women ever allowed near the national press, and she carried both the color line and the sex line at once. The white papers hired almost no black reporters at all. When a group of women at a national magazine finally organized to sue over discrimination, the black women on staff hung back, and later said they had felt like an afterthought to a fight run by white women. They were asked to choose which half of themselves to defend. The newsroom made sure a black woman was outnumbered twice, and then acted surprised she was alone. So they let her in, and then made sure of 3 things: that she was paid less, that she could not rise, and that if she was a black woman, the door shut twice. What is left is the last thing all of it was built to protect: her name, and whether it would ever appear on her own work. Number 6, the copy desk. The heart of a newspaper is the desk where editors shape the raw copy into the paper readers hold. And for most of this era, that desk was closed to women. When Betsy Wade became the first woman to edit news copy at the New York Times, it was treated as an oddity. The paper announced her move to the foreign copy desk in its own newsletter under a joke: first dame to make it. She was, for years, close to the only one. To sit at that desk was to have a hand on the news itself, to decide what a headline said and which words survived. That was judgment, and judgment was assumed to be a man's. A woman could type the words. Whether they were right was not thought to be her call. Number 5, the voice they called unauthoritative. When the news moved onto television, the barrier followed it, and it settled on the sound of a woman's voice. A woman could not anchor the news, the networks explained, because a woman's voice was not authoritative. Viewers would not trust it. Marlene Sanders was told exactly that. When she was given a program, it came with the title News with the Woman's Touch. Before 1970, fewer than 1 in 20 on-air correspondents at the major networks was a woman. Sanders became the first woman to anchor an evening network newscast only by filling in one night for a man who had lost his voice. A permanent woman in the anchor chair of an evening broadcast would not arrive until 2006. The reason was never her reporting. It was the pitch of the voice that carried it. They decided authority had a sex, and it was not hers. Number 4, the researcher. At the news magazines, the rule against women writing was not a habit. It was the job description. At Newsweek, a woman was hired as a researcher, a fact-checker, a mail girl. She was not hired as a writer because women did not write at Newsweek. That was said out loud. Time magazine had helped invent the very role, the female researcher who gathered and checked the facts across Time, Life, Fortune, and Sports Illustrated. A young woman and a young man could arrive from the same journalism school on the same day. He was made a writer, she was made a researcher, and told that was the ceiling. Nora Ephron was one of them. When she was told women did not write there, she left and became one of the most famous writers in America somewhere else. The magazine did not lack talented women. It refused to let them write. Number 3, the name that went on her story. This is what the research job actually was. A woman found the story, she made the calls, ran down the facts, interviewed the people, and wrote it all up in a file. Then that file went to a man. He read it over, rewrote it in his own voice, and the story went to print under his name. Hers appeared nowhere. As the women themselves described the system, they reported, investigated, and wrote the files. The men did a pass, put their names on them, and sent them to press. A woman could spend a decade this way. The reporting was hers. The byline was always his. When the magazine decided to run a cover story on the women's movement, the editors would not trust a single woman on staff to write it and hired a woman from outside instead. The building was full of women who had been reporting the news for years. Not one of them was allowed to sign it. That is the whole of it, in 3 words. Only men covered news, because only men's names were allowed on top. Number 2, the morning they sued. On the 16th of March, 1970, Newsweek put a woman on its cover. The issue was about the women's movement, and the cover showed a woman's fist breaking through the symbol for her sex under the words, "Women in Revolt." That same morning, 46 women who worked at the magazine walked into a press conference and announced they were in revolt too. They had filed a complaint with the federal government charging Newsweek with discriminating against them because they were women. Their lawyer was Eleanor Holmes Norton, 5 months pregnant, who would later go to Congress. It was the first sex discrimination case brought by the staff of a news organization in the country. A newspaper reported it under the headline, "News Hens Sue Newsweek." Even the coverage of their revolt could not resist reminding readers they were girls. The women had spent years being told to check the facts, so they checked their own and made them public. Number 1, the woman who did the reporting. Picture one of them at her desk years before the lawsuit. Lynn Povich had graduated from Vassar, gone to work at Newsweek, and started, as the women did, in the lower ranks. She was bright, careful, and good at the work. She gathered the facts and helped report the stories and watched the words go out under other people's names. She had been taught, in her own words, that she was capable and accomplished, but the word career was never spoken to a young woman like her. She was supposed to be grateful to be in the building at all. For years, the arrangement held because everyone treated it as simply the way things were. Then it broke. Povich signed the complaint and 5 years later became the first woman named a senior editor at Newsweek. The reporting had always been hers. It just took a lawsuit for her name to sit on top of it. She had been doing the job the whole time. The paper had only refused to call it hers. None of this was done by villains. It was done by editors who believed sincerely that they were running a serious newsroom the only sensible way. The rule that a woman could gather the news but not tell it was not written in anger. It was written in the ordinary confidence of men who had never been asked to justify it. And it is all on the record. In the complaints filed with the federal government, in the court cases, the women won, in the mastheads with no women's names, in the balcony that really did exist. Remember the balcony and the file that went out under a man's name, and the reporter told he would never send a woman to the war. The thumbnail on this video says only men covered news. For most of the 1960s, that is what Americans were told. It was never true. The women were covering the news the whole time. They just were not allowed to sign it. Did your mother or your grandmother work a job where a man took the credit for what she did? Tell me her name and what she was never allowed to put her name on.